You're going to hear from a man who's overcome adversity. You're going to hear a man who has some passion and some juice. You're going to hear from a man whose really mission is to bring out the best in his teammates. So as we do every year, I want to read the inscription upon the award, because that's what this event is about, is that the description on this award would be representative of Demario's life, but really would be the kind of description that we would want to be written about our life. And then even though Demario, as a football player, that's his vocation, that we gather here because we all have a vocation, and we all connect. We all connect. We'll hear from his life and his testimony, but really the goal is that this all connects. And here's why Demario's receiving this award. The Call to Courage Award is given to an athlete who displays exemplary character through adversity and triumph. At the heart of his character is a commitment to Jesus Christ that is reflected in every aspect of his life. On and off the field, he's an impact player who brings out the best in those around him. His pursuit of excellence in every area of life is inspiring. He does not view his many achievements as a platform for personal gain. Rather, out of humility, he sees them as an opportunity to serve the community and the world to the glory of God. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome this year's award winner, Demario Davis.
Thank you, Frank. It's a tremendous honor. Linda kind of made a mention about I was showing her my team last night in the shirt. My team is amazing. They really make me who I am. But to share you guys a story, a little while ago, I tell you a little bit about my oldest daughter. Her name is Bailey Grace, and Bailey is has an amazing light on her life. But we call her, the phase she's in is her courage-building phase. And what I mean by that, she's a little fearful, a little afraid. So she's the one, when you put her in the bed, Mommy, I'm afraid of the dark. Dad, I'm afraid of the dark. I don't want to sleep by myself. So she's very, kind of gets afraid. Well, she was in the living room one day, and her mom was cleaning up. She said, Bailey, go on the back porch and bring me the broom. And it was nighttime, and she said, well, it's dark back there, Mommy, and I'm afraid of the dark. And so like any Christian parent would do, my wife said, well, babe, you can go back there. It's okay. Jesus will be out there with you. And she stopped for a second, and she said, well, Mommy, are you sure that Jesus is out there? And I'm watching this whole spectacle go on, and like a Christian parent would do, she said, yeah, Jesus is out there. He'll be with you wherever you go. So I watched her. I didn't think she was going to go back there, but she went to the back door. She opened the door, and she peeked her head out. She said, Jesus, if you're out there, can you pass me the broom? So that's a little bit about my family. Quick testimony. I'm from Collins, Mississippi. My mom had me when she was 16 years old. My dad was 18, and he was shipped off to basic training, and so most of my life he was in the Army, and he was bouncing all over the place, so it was just me and my mom. So the early years of my life, my mom had to go to finish college, and so I stayed with my grandmother till I was in the third grade. And my grandmother was a very religious woman. She read a Bible all the time, took us to church, felt like every day of the week. Every time I passed by her room, she'd be in there praying, and I didn't see her, and I get ready to walk out. She's like, come on in here and pray with me. And so I always kind of grew up with knowing who God was, knowing right versus wrong. But when I went back to live with my mom, we were in a kind of a rough neighborhood. I started playing organized football when I was in the fifth grade, and the first time I played, I went out and scored about 50 touchdowns. And so I kind of felt like, okay, I'm pretty good at this. And but as I got older, when I got ready to go into the ninth grade, a lot of the guys that I was around and my dad wasn't around, they were caught up in some bad stuff. So by the time I entered the ninth grade, I was already smoking weed. I was already getting drunk. I was already going to clubs and running around with a lot of the local gang members and doing things I shouldn't have been. And everything, I thought was going hunky-dory, but my sophomore year, I ended up getting expelled from school. And when I got expelled from school, that was kind of the first major knock that I had on my life. A few months later, I was out with some friends, and we were breaking in some rundown houses, and I cut my arm up. And it was that time that I felt like I first heard the audible voice of God. I was on the hospital table. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and they were stitching my arm up. And I heard the Lord say, "That's strike two. Strike one, you got expelled from school. You didn't learn your lesson. Strike two, you almost killed yourself, because if it would have been a few inches down, I probably would have been dead." He was like, "You didn't learn your lesson. The next time, you're either going to be in jail for a long time, or you're going to be dead." So that kind of shook me and kind of, woke me up. So my junior and senior year, it kind of scared me straight. I went back, made honor roll pretty much my junior, senior year, ended up getting a scholarship to go to college at Arkansas State. And when I got to Arkansas State, I kind of felt like a small fish in a big pond again. And so I felt like I needed to go prove myself. And so I kind of fell back into a lot of my old ways. And God was definitely truthful, because the next time I got in trouble, I landed in jail. And so I spent 3 days in jail after a shoplifting incident. And it was gracious for God that he didn't give me that long time like I thought it would have been. But before I ever played a snap of college football, I had ended up in jail, and I thought I lost my scholarship. So after that time, we had a team chaplain by the name of Chuck McElroy. He started spending time with me. He started taking me out to lunch. Just random days in the week, he just called me up and asked me, "Would you want to go get a bite to eat?" Well, he started asking me tougher questions. And even though I did a lot of bad stuff, I always went to church, so I always thought I called myself a Christian. And he started asking me harder questions like, what do you think sin is? What do you think a Christian life looks like? If you died today on a scale of 1 to 10, how sure are you that you would go to heaven? Just questions that nobody had really ever asked me. And through these series of talks that we have, one day he's walking me, we're walking in the union, he sits me down, and he says, I asked him a question. He said, "Well, let's go see what God has to say about that." And he takes me to the Bible, and this is the first time anybody has really just walked through the Bible with me and explaining it bit by bit. And he takes me to John 15, and it says, a good tree can't bear bad fruit, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit. And he broke that down to me, what he's talking about when he talks about this tree. This tree is your heart, and the fruit are your actions. So your actions come from a place, and it comes from your heart. And so I started just thinking in my mind all the actions that I was doing, and they were all bad. And I was like, well, this means I have a bad heart. Well, this rocked my world, because even though I did all these good things, I always at the end of the day kind of said, well, God, you know my heart. Because I felt like good intentions meant having a good heart. Well, this rocked my world because the Bible was saying something totally different. And so I literally went home that night and fell against my closet and prayed to the Lord and said, God, I need a new heart. And it didn't happen right away, but a couple of weeks later, I was at a Christian conference, and they was doing the worship, and somewhere between John Piper giving them the word and Hillsong leading the worship, it all started to make sense about why Jesus had came and died, and why he had to die for our sins, and all of us being imperfect, and how he was making us a way back to God, even though we are unrighteous, and our righteous acts are like filthy rags before him. And all of a sudden, this light came inside of me, and this pressure was relieved off of me trying to do more good than bad. And it was more about what Jesus had did. And all of a sudden, the words started to make sense. Everything started to make sense. And I just had this huge hunger for God. And I just had this immediate feeling of wanting to go and tell my friends and family, like, we're playing church in our community. We're not having real relationships with Jesus. And at that moment, my life was radically transformed. And all I wanted to do was go and share about God. And so over the years, I went and learned more. I went and studied more, prayed more. And God really just thrust me into a life of sharing and doing ministry about him. And so I could easily go and tell you about all the many stories that God has done through my college team, what God has done when I was with the Jets and with the Browns, what I see him doing when I'm with the Saints. And really pretty much say, like, I'm a good Christian. But I feel like the thing is, I've just been doing what I've been called to do and what we all been called to do. The Great Commission in Matthew 28:19-20 says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And behold, I am with you all until the end of age." And the reason I say that is because as athletes, we get these tremendous platforms. We get these huge platforms where the world is looking at us. But it's not about the platform as much as it is about what you do with the platform. And so I've done nothing more than what I've been called to do. I've done nothing more but open this Bible and seen what Jesus has called me to do and live that out. And what I choose to do with my platform is to honor people who may not necessarily be put in that spotlight. Honor the people who I feel like that I would honor. And when I look at that, the three people in my life that have been monumental, and there are three chaplains that I had. One chaplain with the New York Jets. I watched this man, after 14 years of marriage, his wife walked out on their marriage. But to see him stay faithful through that all, and to really watch a man be brought to his knees in life, but to stay faithful to God and stay faithful to his calling and stay faithful to his children was just monumental for me to see. And all that I'm going through and all that the game provides, but to be able to look at his life and see that type of impact on me. And so that's what I honor when I see Christian characteristics. That's the man who's doing what he's called to do, that the light will never be shined upon. And then when I look at my chaplain, when I was with the Browns, Robert Brooks, he's the one who nominated me for this award. He was the first chaplain I've been around who was around the team every single day. And so though he was around the team every single day, I was able to watch his life. And you guys may not understand, but as athletes in action, these chaplains have to raise support, and that's not always easy, especially for missionaries that come from black communities, because that's kind of a foreign concept. Missionaries is a foreign concept in black communities. And so raising support is not always easy, but to watch him walk through those struggles that he had with his family, but to show up faithful every day, to be faithful to the calling, that's when you start to see things are bigger than this game and that this mission is real. And so that's encouraging to me. But even most importantly was the chaplain who I had who discipled me in college. He discipled me all those years ago. And then this past year, his wife got sick, and she got really sick to the point that she was on her deathbed, and all her organs failed. And slowly but surely, after a lot of prayer, she regained her strength, and it's been about a years-long journey of recovery. And in the middle of all this going on, and I've had conversations with him and seen how that really worked, how that really changed him in essence, and how that really brought him at wits with the Lord. But this past Sunday, I was here preaching at a church on Sunday. I was in Denver preaching at a church, and that's where he lives now. And the night before, he brought me over to his house and had me speak to a group of men that he was kind of sharing with. I kind of remember what he was doing in college. He's still doing the same thing. So in the midst of all that, this man, after having these adverse situations, these men are loving the Lord and doing what they're called to do. And this is people who the light will never shine upon. And so it's amazing that we have these platforms. And so, like, I just try to do with the platform. I try to honor it by honoring those who may not have that light. And I try to do that in all my spaces. Because when you think about it, the Great Commission didn't come with a platform. It didn't say who was called to go. We're all called to go. And then in 1 Corinthians 9:24, it says, "Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it." And so when I picture God looking down upon us, he's looking at every single one of us in this room. We've all been called to run this race. We've all been called to do. And I think with the way you do that is how Frank was described. It's in serving. It's in serving the people that are around you. It's serving the people in your workplace. It's serving your spouses. It's serving your children. That's what we all called to do. And we all called to do it in a way that glorifies God. So use everything that's inside of us to serve the people that are around us, to make their lives better, to take the light off ourselves, which is the hardest thing to do. But the first thing that the Bible calls us to do is to die to ourselves. We're all called to look at the person beside us, the people that are beside us, and look to ways that we can encourage them, uplift them, change them, and magnify their life. And with that, I'll share another little story. There's this preacher, and they're working on a building fund in their church, and they need the money. And so what he usually does anytime there's any kind of fundraising efforts happening in the church or asking people for money, he likes to have his organist play a song that kind of stirs the spirit a little bit and get people in a giving mood. So the Sunday that he's getting ready to preach, his organist calls and said, I have to send you a substitute because I can't play today. So he's kind of really dejected because I really needed you this Sunday. It's a big Sunday. And so the substitute comes and he kind of gives him the game plan. He's like, I'm gonna preach my message, but then at the end I'm gonna ask for some funds, and I need you to play something that can kind of stir the spirit and help people want to give. And so the preacher's a little nervous about how it's gonna go. Well, he gets up and preaches his message, and at the end he says, guys, we've been going through this building fund, and we got a really big ask today. We want to get the church built, and we believe the members here can do it. He says, so we're going to make a pledge. Anybody who can pledge $100, please stand up. So the organist at that moment starts to play the Star Spangled Banner. Let's just say the organist got a full-time job. Thank you.